everybody, welcome back to Andertons TV. We're on the couches today because it is my pleasure to have Peredur Ap Gwynedd from the band Pendulum spending some time with us, talking about music and kit and cycling maybe, I'm not sure.
Possibly.
Fatherhood, all sorts of stuff. So look, thank you very much for coming down. It's a pleasure to meet you. Yes, I was going to throw that in there, but I didn't know that you wanted everyone to know. But we can talk about vasectomies if you really want to. Thank you very much to Matt at Boss for introducing me to Perry as well. So, firstly, let's talk about Pendulum.
Yeah,
an interesting kind of mix of drum and bass, electronic, guitar. How did you? When you were growing up, was that music that you were kind of listening to, and how did that all kind of come apart?
Well, I was kind of interested in it. I remember hearing Kraftwerk for the first time when I was a kid, and I heard The Model by Kraftwerk, and I'm thinking, what the hell is this? And it's the first purely synthetic song that I'd heard, apart from the vocals. And, so I've been interested since then, really. But I was a metalhead growing up, so I was into me Maiden, Gary Moore,
Because if you don't mind me asking, to the nearest decade, where are we at?
I'm a 70s child.
Okay, so I guess the sort of the genre, I suppose, that Pendulum sits in, it didn't exist, did it? So you must have grown up listening to some quite different music. So
because it was just metal. I was in a metal bands when I was a kid, but I loved Chic. I loved Nile Rodgers. I just loved that. I was kind of into Chic before I was into metal, but my cousin Hugh played me Number of the Beast by
There's a genre that the world needs: chic metal. I think.
Yes.
Can you imagine? That would be Niall. If you're watching. Hook up with I don't know, somebody and make that happen. So, but I mean, were you influenced more by the sort of the if you're talking about 70s, you're talking about, I suppose, quite a British-led sort of rock scene.
Yeah, so I grew up listening to music in the 80s then, and it was the new wave of British heavy metal, and then a lot of American heavy metal stuff. But I was also into like fusion and jazz and stuff, like Mike Stern, John Scofield, Laney Stern, anything good guitar based I was into basically.
And at what point in your teens did you think, I need to, I think I can do this kind of seriously? And
it was a friend of mine who told me that I could do it seriously, because when I was about 16 I had no idea what I was going to do. I was doing music in school. I went and did A-level in music in school, and but I had no idea what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to work maybe behind the cameras in a TV studio or whatever, or TV production. But my friend told me, this guy called Mother Isaac, he used to play in a band called Budgie.
I've heard of that.
Yeah. Old Welsh heavy metal band, and he said, you could do this for a living. I was like, really? Because I honestly hadn't thought about it. Yeah, just go do this. Maybe do a degree. Me do a degree in music? Are you mad? So that's what I did. So I studied music, and I did a degree in music in the University of London. So.
And now you've been in Pendulum for about 15 years.
Yes.
So prior to that, then, what were you? Did you have any success as a guitar playing musician prior to that? Yeah,
my first big gig was Natalie Imbruglia. So
cool.
Yeah, so 1997 we were called in. A friend of mine was asked to put the band together. My friend Chuck Sabo, drummer, and so I was asked, and my brother was on bass.
Almost fresh out of university.
Yeah, more or less, and so. So we turned up. Well, actually, I got Torn on CD. I got a promo version of Torn, and I put it in the CD player, and I listened to it. And I thought, I might get 3 months' work out of this. So, and then Torn became this massive hit.
So you were right place at the right time.
Yeah.
You literally were with the band before that single came out.
3 weeks before the single came out. That's when we put the band together.
Of that year, that was probably the biggest. Of the year,
it was
really?
#1 on the Billboard charts for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So, and it was #1 everywhere. So we, from 1997, I was working with Natalie up until 2006. So I had 9 years of work, and
Fantastic.
it was amazing. It was just like you got treated really well wherever you go. So it was fabulous.
So I mean, because I know you joined Pendulum in 2006. So you had a fantastic period of time with Natalie Imbruglia, presumably playing absolutely nothing like the kind of music that you would have gone into in Pendulum. So how was that? You know, were you sort of in the background? Were you kind of aware of what Pendulum were doing and sort of drawn into that more, you know, that sort of high energy, you know, drum and bass, rock, metal?
Well, I was doing some drum and bass. I was working with a producer called DJ Fresh. He went on to do. He broke Rita Ora. Yeah, her first single was with Fresh. So I was working with him on his drum and bass stuff, and it was quite dark and heavy stuff. So I was doing that during the time I was with Natalie, and then he had a small drum and bass label, and he signed this Australian trio.
Yeah.
And so they came over from Australia, and they wanted a guitar on the first album. And Fresh went, well, get my mate Perry, and he's been playing on a load of stuff for me. And they went, all right then. So that was 2004.
Right.
2003 I started recording with them. Then I went off on tour again with Natalie, did a French artist called Mylène Farmer, which is another huge thing. And then I didn't think about Pendulum, and then a mate told me, he said, remember that band Pendulum you did a session for? I said, yeah. Well, that album sold 400,000 copies. I went, you what? 400,000? That was the first album called Hold Your Colour. And so then I got back in touch with the guys, or they got back in touch with me, and then they had thoughts of doing it live. So, you know, live drum and bass, it wasn't, there's a couple of bands, Ronnie Size had done it, I think.
Right.
Not many people had done it, and so we kind of started working on a live thing in rehearsals. So yeah, we started working, so I thought, well, this is going to work. And it kind of went from there then, and from about 2006 I've been a member of the band. So.
I mean, I'm kind of fascinated how those two, I almost sometimes feel the sort of, you know, metal or very guitar related music and electronica and drum and bass are almost the antithesis of each other. Mm-hmm. And so it kind of feels like, were there any, when you get this sort of crossover style, this, you know, mergence of two sort of quite contradictory styles of music together, did you have any reservations about kind of, I mean, what I'm sort of, how was it, how do you feel you're perceived as a guitar player when the sort of, you know, you're talking about being in what someone might see as almost like a drum and bass band?
Well, that first rehearsal, we only did a couple of songs, and the first thing I did was listen to the bass line, and the bass lines are heavy. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to put guitar over these bass lines. I'm going to basically vaguely copy these bass lines, but bass lines, and do power chords over them and see if that works. And it worked. So basically I'm playing extreme metal over these drum and bass lines. So it's if you took the backing out and just heard me play, I'm just going da, 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 da. I'm just playing extreme metal over it. So it kind of fits, and because we've got this big crossover. We've got, you know, you've got the electronic music people who love us, but we've also got the metalheads as well. So our first crossover festival that we did was Download.
Right.
So
that's the kind of, because I know you. I suppose you can look at bands maybe like Linkin Park and stuff like that, and you can kind of, you know, it's not.
Well, Prodigy as well. Prodigy
kind of, absolutely. Were they the pioneers? Do you think Prodigy of that?
Definitely.
I mean, I did think, you know, I mean, I'm not a big. You know, drum and bass kind of expert, if you like. But I was listening, you know, over the last 2 or 3 days, listening to some Pendulum stuff, knowing that you were coming in, and I was thinking to myself, you know, I'm feeling Prodigy, and I hope that's not just like cliche because it's, you know.
Oh, no, they definitely
that was
they helped us.
Inspiration.
Yeah, they helped us. We were supporting them on their big festivals as well, so they helped us a lot, and we've collaborated with them on record as well. So. Yeah, it was definitely them. They were the ones who headlined, the first electronic act to headline Download first.
So what happens then at Download when you got, you know, 50,000 people in the audience waiting to see Slayer, whatever, and Pendulum come? Is the reaction universally good, or are you always sort of worried about how that's going to happen?
That first Download, we had no idea what was going to happen. So, you know, we're a bit nervous going on stage, and we all looked at each other and said, right, worst case scenario, you know, in Download and festivals, you've got bottles of piss.
Yes.
You get bottles of urine being thrown in the air. So because we were sure that we were going to get bottled, and so we had a bit of a huddle before going on. I said, right, worst case scenario, bottle comes on stage, hits you in the face, and some wee goes into your mouth. That's worst case scenario. What are you going to do? You're going to stay on stage, you're going to walk off. And we all looked at each other and went, stay on stage. And that was it. But there wasn't any bottles at all. At one point in that gig, I counted 9 circle pits. And I was just going, oh my God. And that's when it suddenly clicked. This is going to work.
This is going to work.
Yeah. So there's about 40, 50,000 people. We were on at 3 p.m. And it just went mental. And from then on, it just went utterly crazy.
I mean, it is impossible. You know, I would never in a million years, and I never did all through my 20s and 30s, whatever, go to a rave or anything like that. I you know, the whole drum and bass thing has kind of passed me by like that. But I can't help but that intro piece that you did, listen to it. It's quite infectious, isn't it? That sense of, you know, it's, and I can understand as a crossover genre, it does work.
It's absolutely. The people, well, you get metalheads, you've got all people love pop music, you know, everybody comes to the shows, but it's all ages as well, which is really weird. I remember one show, there was 3 generations. There was like a kid that was about 8.
Yeah.
His or her parent and the grandparent.
Brilliant.
In the front row.
Glow sticks, everything, just giving it.
And it's like, but they had metal t-shirts on as well. And it's like, they had like Iron Maiden. And
brilliant.
It was like, wow, you know, we've got something here. This is really, really, you know, you can't pay for that type of thing.
Yeah.
It's just once in a lifetime thing that happens, you know. It's we don't know why it happened, but it just did.
So when you joined Pendulum, and it was a trio of guys, the Australian guys that had started it. How open were they, and how quick did it become where the sort of the guitar creative started to come into the music? Was there a sort of a gradual look, the music is what it is and you just do your bit and it's a bit of, you know, fluff on top? How did it become like, oh no, actually, why don't you start contributing riffs and stuff and we'll make music around that?
Everybody in the band is also a metalhead, which is quite lucky. So, you know, people, the guys love Deftones, Slayer, blah, 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 Metallica, you know, that's what the music, Devin Townsend, we just love Devin and strapping young lads and all that. And we collaborated with Devin as well, which is really cool. He's one of my heroes. So so that's where we come in from anyway. So Rob, who writes most of the songs, Rob's the lead singer in the band, he's got that in his mind anyway. Right. He's thinking riffs, so bass riffs, guitar riffs, and I come in and just do my stuff on top, because he usually has already written music, and I put the stuff on top of it. So yeah, so it's been it's a lot of fun recording, because you know it's not a lot of chance you go into a studio, you don't get a chance that often to just go. But with Pendulum you do. It's brilliant. It's
honestly, I've really enjoyed listening to some of the music and watching some of the YouTube stuff over the last 2 or 3 days. Let's talk gear.
Yeah.
It is you know, presumably what's the right word? I've not seen any Pendulum videos with you with a sort of cliche Marshall stack standing behind you, and you know, so tell us about, you know, and it's a 15 years that you've been with the band, and so I'm sure, you know, the gear will have changed over that time, but has there been a sort of a constant throughout that you're trying to achieve sounds using digital, you know, equipment? Or?
Well, one thing we found out really early on was a mic'd up amp with an electronic band like that, with all the sounds synthetic. So obviously the synths are synthetic, and it's we use trigger samples on the drums, so they're samples, even though it's a live drummer. KJ Sawker plays the drums. Everything is synthetic, but if you put a microphone in front of a speaker with that going on in the background, it's really difficult to sit in the mix. But we found out if we DI everything, then it's fine. So I usually use a Hughes & Kettner, or I've been using a Grandmeister 40, which got the red box in the back, so we use that. So basically my system has been for the last few years wet, dry, wet. Helix is in stereo. It's not just delays, it's the full sound.
Thing, yeah.
And the Hughes and Kettner Grandmeister mono in the front, so it's a really nice mix. It sounds huge.
Yeah.
I'm just using the Helix today because it's easier. And we found DI'd stuff sits in the mix way much better. Because even that little bit of air between the microphone and the speaker really affects the mix. You know, we don't know why it happens, but it just works.
We were talking about that before we started, weren't we? About just that, you know, I know when if I go and see a rock band and one of the guitar players is using a traditional guitar, you know, valve amp and a speaker versus the other one using something like a Kemper or a Helix. In isolation, both guitar sounds are great.
Yes.
But you blend the two together and for some reason they don't sit well together. There's always that sense of like it's not working well as a mix. Weird. I'm sure perhaps some clever sound engineer will tell us why that is. So you couldn't always have played Helix because it didn't exist 15 years ago. So give us the gear journey then.
All right. When I first started Pendulum, I was playing it was the Hughes and Kettner Triamp. So it's the Marshall.
That holds the world record for the most glass in an amplifier. Doesn't it? It's like about 60 million valves or something.
It sounds amazing and it's loud. So I had two of those, one spare. We never needed spare because Hughes and Kettner, they never break down.
Good.
And that was in a rack. And then I had the G system, TC, which is amazing, and it's still amazing. And G system, and I had loads of pedals in a drawer. You know, so that and two 4x12s, and I used to take about 8 to 9 guitars on tour with me, which, you know, in one of those big vault thingies, you know.
Because you can.
Yeah.
Sure, you know.
I mean, the thing weighed half a ton.
Brilliant.
It was ridiculous. It was utterly ridiculous. And Gareth, then, who plays bass, had the same on his side. So I was on one, so it's like we had a ton of...
That's proper.
Yeah.
Proper rock stuff.
And then we had a bit of a hiatus for a few years, and we came back together and said, right, let's change it. Let's do everything small. And actually, it's funny enough, I saw it was when you did the Helix
with Paul Marsh.
On Andertons CV, and I was like, oh my god, and that's when I got it. Mad. So it was because it was the inputs, and the outputs, and the effects loops, and I was like, I was trying to see on the videos like, how many. Oh my god, yes, it's one of those. So that's why I got it. Was from
Helix
YouTube.
probably was the first mainstream brand. I mean, Axe FX, I think, would probably say that they were doing something just slightly prior, but was never really accessible through stores or anything like that. So fair play to Helix. So that you went from 2 4x12s, 2 Triamps,
sometimes
drawer
4
full of pedals,
4x12s, which is ridiculous. Yeah.
Which is nuts, right? To literally something that you came down on the train today, basically with your entire rig in a backpack.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So, and with because the Grandmeister is so small, it's like, well, it weighs 8 kilos. So, so my whole rig, 2 guitars. Oh yeah, with the guitars, there are different tunings. I'm mainly in E flat standard. Yeah. Sometimes I'm in D standard, and for a couple of songs I'm in E standard. Mm-hmm. So now I use a capo for E standard, and I use a Digitech drop to go down to D.
And that tracks fast enough, does it?
Yeah, it's a little bit of latency, but you compensate on that, so you play it slightly ahead of the beat. So your brain goes, right, okay, because you can kind of hear it, but not that much. But your brain compensates, so you play ahead of the beat. So then when the sound comes out in the speakers, it's in time with the music. It's really weird.
I'm interested on that because Rabir, who people who watch the show will know, and I don't know if you've ever met, sweetheart guy.
Amazing player. I've never met him.
Fantastic player. So he has a gig with a Frog Leap, which is a huge Norwegian of YouTube guy who tours off the back of that and plays big festivals out there. But he uses the Helix, but with the
Shuriken.
Yes, the guitar. The what was it? Variax technology, but in the Shuriken, because he's literally changing tunings mid-song in some of them. But why doesn't that? Has that never appealed to you to just go, I could just have one guitar? I suppose that's why. Because it's not as good as that.
Well, I've got a Variax at home. It's brilliant. But this is just ridiculous. It's an absolute ridiculous. And,
Do you know what is? I love it when I see PRS guitars properly played. I don't mean properly played technically, because you are a good player, but I mean as in that guitar, has got dings and scratches and wear, and look at the back of it. And that's what a guitar should look like.
Absolutely, yeah.
If you've really got the most out of it.
Yeah.
And look, and the fretboard on there, it's that stunning ebony fretboard.
It's just a beautiful guitar. I've modded it. It's got a 3-position. Okay, I've got an SE. Custom 24 Floyd as well, and it's got a 3-way. So I've changed it to a 3-way, and split coils. So you've got, instead of, because this comes with a 5-way.
That's right.
So I changed it to what the SE is like. So it's is
that because I suppose practically.
It's what I want.
You either want it humbucker mode or you want it single coil, and you don't want to sort of accidentally be in the wrong.
That's right.
It's much harder to accidentally get the wrong thing when you've got to.
Because it's either one or the other. With me, I don't know why, but and I changed the pickups because these were the metal pickups that they do, and I've got the not so metal pickups.
They probably don't call them that.
Yeah.
Is it HFS?
That's it. The HFS and the whatever bass, I think.
Yes, HFS and vintage bass or whatever.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And so I spoke to Jez at PRS and said, please, and thankfully he sent me these, and it's amazing. I just love this guitar. Let's
just, whilst you've got the guitar, we might as well have a strum on a couple of sounds, because Helix is I think everyone watching this will know that I have a tough time with kind of jumping between hearing amps in the room like this and then hearing digital stuff. But I hope people appreciate that's I am not doing what you're doing. I'm not touring. I'm not playing the kind of volumes and stadiums that you're playing. And I do get it. And I actually thought in that first clip, I thought that sounded really good. Cool, so fair play. And at volume again, and with the music going on in the background, it's exciting to listen to. And I'm not sitting there going, oh, it would sound much better if you had a Vox AC30,
But you can get a Vox AC30.
No. So are you just at one with it now?
Yes.
As a,
absolutely.
it's just like, it's a good, that's just what you use, which is great.
Well, every single gig I've done for over the last 20 years, since Natalie, has been on in-ears. So I could have an amp in a room, but, I could feel the weight of it, I suppose, but I'm actually hearing the mix that the monitor guy is sending into my ears. So, and now the technology's there, that it's not supposed to sound like an amp in a room. That's what a lot of people make the mistake. It's supposed to sound like an amp coming through speakers. Yeah. So either your speakers in the studio or the PA speakers at a gig. It's not supposed to sound like one of these cranked up. Although it's modelled that through speakers. So that's all it is, really. Of it, isn't it? But then again, you do get the weight. If you're playing with a big PA, you can feel it. It's like, oh my god, yeah.
So I can see is this fairly indicative of your? Would you have a fuzz pedal through the, as one of the loops, and you'd be using the synth? Yeah,
that's what I've been using this summer as well. In one of the loops, I've got a HX Stomp as well. Yeah. So, because I haven't been able to take the Hughes and Kettner with me. So instead of that Hughes and Kettner being bang in mono, I've got HX Stomp being bang in mono as well. So and I've got the Digitech Drop, of course. So but the Boss SY300, the guitar synth as well.
Awesome.
This has seen better days.
So SY300. Yeah. I'm kind of familiar with that, and it's an interesting departure for Boss over the last 3 or 4 years, away from doing the old-fashioned synth, the pitch to MIDI vibe, to processing that synthesizes the natural guitar. Were you playing with pitch to MIDI stuff in Pendulum before, or not?
No, I never got to grips with that, because the tracking and the latency was a bit off for me. But funny enough, another Andertons TV.
Okay.
I thought, I got to get one of those. So I did.
With that, I
think I actually bought it from here.
Well, thank you very much. I'm guessing I think Alex Hutchins has been the guy that's probably come in and done most of the demos for us on
Yeah, that was the clip that I saw. It was just like, and I knew it. I had to get one.
And I must admit, it's the latest video I did with Alex, so I don't think it's out yet, or perhaps it will be by the time this comes out, but it's on the guitar, the Ura's guitar with this kind of tech built in. And I have the utmost respect for Alex because he plays to the product, and as soon as he gives it to me, I just play what I play, and it just sounds crap, you know, because it's not for playing
it's not
traditional
for playing,
guitar licks out of, is it?
No, it's not. It's not for playing blues.
That's what you really wanted to say, wasn't it? It's just not for blues.
Yes, but because you have to think out of the box. Again, it's like, I don't really use it with the synth sound on its own. I always mix it in. So there's always some sort of guitar sound and the synths behind it, and just gives it that added width that you wouldn't usually get. And that's why I use it, and that's why it works so perfectly with Pendulums, because it fits in with the synth sounds that you hear anyway.
Could we dial through, grab the guitar and just literally do some examples of the kinds of sounds that you might get?
TH and the THX sound.
See, I can imagine that at real volume with pyrotechnics and lasers going off everywhere.
That's
nuts. Epic, right?
Yeah, it's a bit bonkers. Yeah, I love it.
And I like the fact, I mean, we should try and, again, if you've got some other patches and stuff that you use in the band, but I like how, and I think that's where the synth technology from Boss needs to be used. It's used creatively.
Absolutely.
Maybe not sparingly is the wrong word, but just, think about going, it's not about basically just having some sort of synth pad under everything I play.
And it's not about doing saxophone solos on your guitar. You get a sax player to do that.
Yes.
You have to think out of the box and use it creatively. If you don't use it creatively, then you will sound like a synth sound on a synth sounds a bit crap, really. Yeah. And it will sound crap. So I use it, guitar sound, and just slightly behind the guitar sound. Yeah. It just gives it that added depth.
And on the Helix, are you loading your own IRs in there, or are you?
I use stock. I use stock.
Really?
I don't even bother with IRs because
controversial.
Yeah, but the stock cabs in there are IRs, but you just use them differently. You can change the microphones. I've got a ton of IRs at home, and my God, it's a pain going through them all. Because like for one speaker, you get about 30 or 40 different mic placings. I'm like, nah.
Oh, the man off my own heart there. I mean, I got given some 2-note stuff last year. And they said, "Oh, look, Lee, just give us your email address, and we'll just load everything into your account. You have it all." I'm like, "Oh, that sounds good." And then, honestly, 5 minutes of scrolling through going, I've not even scratched probably 1% of what they've sent me. And I'm going, I just need to go. That's fine. Just get on with it.
Yeah, because the stock stuff in here, it's fine. You've got to tweak it, and you've got to put stuff in front of it. I like to put a compressor at the very end of the chain. There's a compressor called the LA Comp, and whatever preset that's on, when you pull it up, put that at the end of the chain, and it just sounds awesome.
That's interesting.
It's like the ultra awesomizer. Just makes it sound
amazing. That's a very sort of almost like a studio mastering
Exactly.
approach to getting the sound, isn't it? Rather than a typical front end compressor thing.
If you're in a recording studio with a normal amp, it'll go through the desk, and usually the last thing it'll go through before it hits, it used to be tape, and now it's the computer, the hard drive, would be a compressor, or something like that. And I was messing about and just put one on it. I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's the special sauce. Just put a compressor at the end of it, and it's fine.
And are you
in stereo, because I use stereo sounds as well. So.
Are you flying the flag for Wales with that fuzz pedal, or are you just? Do you actually want to use do you use external pedals with it?
Yeah, I do. I'm a bit of a fuzz nerd. I've got tone benders at home. I've got the Roto Sound Fuzz is just amazing, and I've got a couple of boutique-y things at home as well. But this one's a company in North Wales, and it's called Bron yr Aur Stomps. You know, there's a Led Zeppelin song called, well, people call it Bron y Aur Stomp.
Yes.
But it's Bron yr Aur. That's
the
proper.
That's a beautiful, beautiful song. I think off of Led Zeppelin 3,
is.
isn't it, or something? But I must admit, I feel bad now because I've always said it the way that obviously presumably all English people say it. So how am I supposed to say it?
Bron yr Aur.
Doesn't look like that when it's written down.
But they've actually spelt it on the record.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant.
So this guy Kevin in North Wales, he's named his company Bron yr Aur Stomps. So stomp pedals. So and we're working on a signature together. We're
is that the one effect that you just can't recreate?
Oh no,
on
you've
a
got
DSP.
Oh no, there's some great fuzzes.
Oh, you think you can? Okay.
They do the Boss hyper fuzz in this,
right?
Which is great, and which I love, and which Bosch should make. I've told Matt this. Bosch should make that again because it's an amazing fuzz pedal.
The time is right to bring it back.
Yeah. So the fuzz is great. But this is it's a little bit different, more of fuzz overdrive. This one. I've been playing it for about a month now. It's just one of those. It's kind of overdrivey, fuzzy type of thing, and I use it in conjunction with the Helix. It's just in a loop, and I use it with the effects in the Helix.
Yeah.
So it's quite a traditional sound. Yeah. It's got two different. You've got off, and that's. So it's quite a fuzzy overdrive.
Yeah.
If you put a modelled tube screamer in front of that. It's quite a traditional sounding. You can make this sound traditional as well. So
it's good. And would you say, you know, the guy we were talking again about that very first Helix launch that Yamaha did, and they took all the kind of the guys who you would never ever think would use Helix. So Neville Martin was the very well known guitarist mag journalist. And took them up to a studio and basically had, well, here's they had like old plexis and everything, but they had like a black curtain or something so you couldn't see, and then they were going, right, what are you listening to now? You know, and the switching between Helix and old amps. And I remember Nev saying it was pretty like weird to be going, I've convinced myself my whole life that digital will never sound, you know, just be really obvious which is which. Anyway, and then
I was the same.
Yeah.
I was exactly the same.
Yeah.
And then I heard everything.
Yeah.
And just like,
I know Nev went over to playing Helix in a really traditional, the Marty Wilde band, you know, it's like, so Pendulum, Marty Wilde.
Well,
it's like...
I played in Kim Wilde's band, so it was for a bit
as well. There you go. Honestly,
so
what do they call that? Like sort of the 7 degrees of like, you know, everyone is only ever like 7 relationships off of, meetings off of everyone else. Give us some again. You played some of those big sort of chords where you let the sort of the synth thing come.
Yeah.
How long have you had the SY300 for?
When did you do that? the video.
Oh yeah, so a while, a couple of years then. So
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
So give us some of your favourite, you know, Pendulum sort of esque intro tones from that.
There's another synth sound that I like, but it's actually in the Helix as well that I use. And we've got a song called Slam. That was one of our first singles. But there's I'm not sure what the pedal is, but it's called the growler. But you know, you got ears.
Yeah, the infamous growler.
Yeah. So
that's perfect, right?
Yeah. So. And
isn't everyone just waiting for the drum and bass to come in after that? It's just like, this is what it's going to do, isn't it?
But so you use the volume to, you know, the louder it is, the more it hits the filter. So. It's like a touch filter thing, but if you do it like that, it's one of my favourite ones.
That's very cool. That's super, super cool. So, tell us a little bit about, what's it like being in, the guitar player in Pendulum? Is it very much, when you're live, is it a very visual, is there a lot of, because I've seen a few videos with the lasers and the pyrotechnics, It looks like a very visual kind of thing, but what part do you play in that?
Well, it's all, like nearly every single band, you get now, even metal bands you think, who are traditionally sounding, a lot of them play to a click, because everything comes off the computer, as in not the music, but the lights are programmed to the click. Well, we've got SMPTE code, so the lights and the video as well. So if you stop a song halfway and go, oh, let's do the verse again, if you're rehearsing, then the video will rewind to that very section. So everything is automated. So live, what you see and what you hear, because everything is stored digitally now, on the front of house desk. Apart from the acoustics in different halls, you'll see the same show every single night, unless you swap the songs around. And you can swap the songs around. So that's the main thing. That's the main difference between now and say 20 years ago that you do that. But playing guitar is just like. It's just like playing in another band, really. It's not that much difference. You just get to pose a lot, go, way. It's just, it's one hell of a laugh. It is the best job in the world, but, it's a lot of fun.
It looks good. Are you involved much in how the visual shows are put together?
No, we get videographers to do that, and we've hired animators in the past just to do digital animations for us. So it's a lot of the stuff, we might say do blah 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 blah, do an Egyptian thing, it's a bit Iron Maiden, and they will do that, because on the latest thing we've done is called Pendulum Trinity. It's just three of us.
Got the symptoms of a cold war, all of our troubles to make believe, but dying on our own soil, calling your friends onto the teeth. There's nothing for you, nothing for me, nothing's for sale, nothing for free. You wanna take my life and fade away.
Because during lockdown, Paul, who usually DJs for us, he moved back to back to Australia just before lockdown, so he can't come over.
Right.
Australia's seriously locked down. Kevin, KJ, our drummer, lives in the States, so it's just the three of us left in the UK. So we've been doing like hybrid DJ gigs. So Gareth, our bass player, is on the decks, and Rob, our singer, is on the decks as well, and he does some live singing, and I do live guitar. So it's like been a total hybrid live DJ set. So that's been odd, because we've never done that before. So we've been doing that for about a year on and off. We did one show in the ocean.
I thought that looked super cool.
There's a little fort off in the ocean off Portsmouth, in the Solent between Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight, called Spitbank Fort, and we did a gig there about a year ago. And it works well. You know, it's totally different from the live vibe, but but we've done some actual gigs with it this summer as well. It's been so good playing live again.
Yeah, I can imagine the gig. When you're doing the gigs, do you have a preference as to whether or not you're playing like a download style festival or something that's more of a drum and bass kind of festival?
You know what? The audience reaction is exactly the same. It's just the length of the hair and the t-shirts that are different. In a dance thing, you will get glow sticks, or you will get muscle guys just dancing. I don't know why. I think they're called bros.
Okay.
Yeah, they're called bros. But in metal shows, you get metalheads. But the reaction is exactly the same. Yes, we've seen circle pits in dance festivals this year.
Much better behaved ones.
Yes, a bit more glow sticky. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is mad. And then in terms of just what the future holds, do you try and balance some solo stuff up with this, or is it all very, is it very Pendulum focused?
Yeah, I don't really do solos. Even though I can play solo stuff, I'm never really been into writing it. I do the odd thing now and again, but and I've been doing some sessions since lockdown. I've been getting back into doing shred stuff, and that's been a lot of fun. But I've always been a band player since Natalie. The main thing, if you unless you want to be a soloist, if you're going to be in a band, the most important thing is to play the song. And this is a cliche, but I make most of my living playing between the fret, the nut, and fret 7. That's the dusty end, right? But it's a cliche, but it's true. That's where you make your living if you're a musician. Just down there.
Yep.
And just make sure that's right. It's playing chords and playing rhythms more important than playing. It's great to learn and to know how to solo, because you will need to do it sometimes. Go, do solo there. But that's the most important. Is playing the song is the most important thing. Yeah. It's the same with Natalie Imbruglia, with Faithless, we played with Anastasia, Tiny Temper, with Sophie Ellis-Bextor. It's playing the song. If you go in and just start shredding, they won't ask you back. Yeah. So that's the really important thing. And Peter will know this. It's like it's between there and there. Get that stuff sorted first and do that stuff for fun, because you will get to do that stuff when they ask you. But that's the most important bit.
I think that's that's definitely working with Pete for the last 5 years. That basic understanding of you're there to kind of hold the song together rather than show off and do anything too flash or whatever.
And being able to play with a drummer and a bass player, that's very, very important. That's one of the first things that I learned when I was a kid, when I was in a band, was just like locking together. That's so important. Yeah. And so if you can go out and rehearse with the band rather than play at home, just do it, because it just helps you so much as a musician.
And so the future is basically for more Pendulum albums and tours.
Yeah.
And
I've been myself and Rob have been writing just this week some new stuff. Hopefully, if everything goes to plan, health-wise with the planet, the plan is we're going to be touring full band. Hopefully next year for the first time since New Year's Eve 2018. So
all around the world, or.
Yeah, so we've got stuff in the diary already. So hopefully, and if the projected, the way that stuff's projected, hopefully, if everything stays all nice and healthy, we'll be doing that next year.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure you coming in. Lovely to meet you. Honestly, really enjoyed this. It's another one of those, like, for all the sort of old traditionists like me, it's another sort of sense of, look, this gear absolutely has its place. It does some stuff incredibly well. And, if you're watching this and you're sort of thinking, maybe I'm not so familiar with Pendulum, go check them out. Got some amazing videos. It's crazy. You go onto YouTube and, it's like, oh, 7 million billion views on this video. It's just like, you go, wow, somebody's obviously into this. It's just so, yeah, very, very cool. And yes, lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for coming down.
It's been an absolute honour.
All right, I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this, and please like and subscribe if you did. And yes, we shall see you in another video soon. Bye-bye.